Hi there. Suzanne here again. Now, here we are at week 4. Okay, we're finally here. The last week of the hormonal body clock, of the hormonal monthly rhythm of women. And so we've been comparing everything to the solstices or the equinoxes because, once again, we're really talking about the building of light or the reducing of light, the building of energy or the reduction of energy, the building of a uterine lining or the deconstruction of the uterine lining. This is what we're really talking about here. We're talking about similar energies, and I really go on and on about this because I think it's so important to understand when we have been programmed over the generations that our cycles are negative in society. We get called all kinds of horrible names. We feel like we haven't had any control over this thing. This is something that has control over us. There's nothing that's all that enjoyable about it. And if we're feeling good, it's because nothing's happening with our hormones. That's the way that we've all been taught to think, and not all of us, but many of us, most every woman I talk to, young or older, feel this way. So what I'm trying to do is really trying to impart on you how important you are, how important this cycle is as far as the importance in the universe. This is a universal rhythm of sacred geometry that matches the other universal rhythms. It's got a resting phase, a building phase, and an expressing phase, and a deconstructing phase, and back to rest. I mean, right here in our bodies. But of course, here we are creation embodied. We are creating human beings, and in the same way that the universe has created planets, here we are, we've got the universe within us, and of course we've got this sacred geometry within us. So here we are in nature that is showing us all the time, that has us understanding what rhythms are about and how to recognize them and walk through them. These seasons, we naturally understand them because we grew up with them. Everyone around us, accepted them and understood them, and they weren't weird. It wasn't weird to feel differently, feel hot or cold in summer or winter or that kind of thing. It's not unusual to be refreshed in the morning and be tired at night. Those are two different energies, but we have a rhythmic day. We make rhythmic decisions all of the time. So here we are at week 4. The summer solstice, again, it is the longest day of the year, the longest amount of light. It's the opposite of the winter solstice, but it is recognizing what it does is it begins the decline of light. Actually, we don't notice it that much in the summer because it's we're out late, it's light late. We like being out at night in the summer because it's cooler or a little bit more comfortable. So in that way, we love summer because it's fun to be out at night and doing fun things and going to music concerts and things like that. So all of that is really fun. But the downside of summer is that if you notice, so next time summer rolls around for you, and if you're in the southern hemisphere, you're there right now, all anyone really talks about is how hot it is. If you're out running around doing errands, if you're not in air conditioning all the time, if you're out and about, I want you to notice that it's the main topic of conversation, how hot it is. And it's not a time we want to get cozy because it's too, maybe I love you, honey, but just don't touch me. It's sticky and hot and, depending on where you live, but, it is just sometimes too hot to be cozy, that kind of things. And the heat makes us tired really fast. The heat makes us irritable very quickly. We're needing to find water. We're needing to find relief. So this really is there's no other season that's like it in this way. It is an extreme season in the same way that winter, depending on where you live, but can be a very extreme season. The 4th week of the female cycle is the time that is traditionally called the PMS week. PMS. That stands for premenstrual syndrome, and I completely reject that this is a syndrome, and I find it insulting that any part of our cycle is referred to as being a syndrome, that there's something wrong with it, that it's a condition. There's no condition about this. We may not feel well, and some women really struggle through this week. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the average experience. We are feeling irritable, all of these kinds of things. But this is the deconstructing phase. This is the natural part of the rhythm. What goes up has to come down. And we have to get good at mastering this. It's sort of like being out in the ocean on a really, you want to be, let's just say you want to be out in the ocean, but the waves are sort of doing some wacky things. If you learn how to master that, if you learn how to get good at the chaos, you won't drown. So what happens with the hormones is, again, without getting into the whole big thing, I'd have to go back into week 3 and explaining that whole thing. There is a longer version on YouTube where I get a little bit more into that. But what happens is that at the beginning of week 4, what kicks off week 4 is the fact that the body figures out it's not pregnant. There's after ovulation, it takes about a week before, so the body is in this holding pattern, this sort of nurturing, holding out for motherhood kind of thing, wondering. So it's holding this space for mothering and nurturing for that week 3, while it figures out whether a fertilized egg is going to attach itself to the uterine lining. That happens, if it's going to happen, it happens 6 or 7 days after ovulation. So, and there's a ticking clock going on right there. If there is a fertilized egg and it embeds itself, there is a pregnancy. The HCG hormone announces a pregnancy and the pregnancy goes. But if there's no pregnancy, it's indicated because nothing embeds itself in the right amount of time. And what that means, that trigger right there, is so incredibly important. It's often, I just don't hear it talked about in sex education. And this is so important psychologically, and understanding why we go through the things that we go through. What happens is that when the body understands that there's no pregnancy, that no pregnancy was saved, let's say, there was nothing to go with, that uterine lining has to come down, because only one uterine lining is allowed per pregnancy. So it has to come down. And it has to break down. Progesterone is the hormone that's been keeping it fluffed up. So that means progesterone has to just tank. And it needs to tank as fast as it went up. So all in 1 week, in week 4, you're losing progesterone so that progesterone is not supporting the uterine lining anymore. And when the uterine lining is not supported, it starts breaking down. It starts breaking down until it gets to the form of blood. And then it is flushed out in the form of blood during week 1 of the period. But during that week 4, that's the breakdown phase. Now, what we go through as women is a form of survival, of breaking down in a way. This is here as a positive. It's here to have us learn how to face our fears, how to walk through chaos. I call this week the fire walk, because I see this as a big ceremony, as a huge initiation, and it's my absolute favorite week of the cycle, because once I mastered this, my entire life changed. That was the first time. I mean, I always thought I was an empowered woman. I always felt pretty much in charge, and anybody who knows me would agree with that. But our cycles are a vulnerable piece of ourselves, and again, how we're walking in society around this is not fun. We don't know why. We don't even like ourselves at this time because we're cranky, or that kind of thing. But once I learned how to master this, it was so incredibly exciting. So here's the thing. Well, I could get all into this. This is a whole training here in and of itself, but I will say this, is that the first time that you hear, the first time you feel like you want to burst into tears, the first time that you feel road rage, the first time that you yell at your children when you wouldn't normally yell at them for something like this, and then you feel horribly after it, those I call hot spots. And when you know that, that was a hot spot right then you recognize the phase that you're in, and the illusion of it in a way, yet it's real and your issues are real. But how you handle this, how you walk through it, is now something that you can learn how to do because you know what's happening and you're aware of what's going to support you and what you might regret later. So this is a big, very exciting time. So let's compare it with summer, though. This particular week, this deconstructing phase, because everything's trying to break down, everything's trying to work its way out. Too much stimulation coming in is just too much. So it's almost like walking around every month when we go through this time, it's almost like being in the hottest, like it's the hottest day of the year, like it's the hottest day of summer, because everything just feels a little irritating. Everything feels, like, please don't touch me kind of thing. Our skin is actually feeling electric. Our temperature is higher. So this is why I compare this to summer, and there is no other season that works better for this week 4 than summer. And when you get to summer, I want you to really notice how you're feeling, how everyone is talking about it, and compare that with that week 4. I could go on and on about all of these weeks. Obviously, I can talk for a long time. It's one of my very favorite topics in the world. So thank you for listening to these 4 comparisons to the seasons. And I will be seeing you more. I will have a webinar coming up for you. I will have an offer for a chance to grow more fully into this work if you choose to, and you'll be hearing about that very soon. But whether or not you continue, I am so grateful and happy that you've opted into these 13 Muses cards and that you're participating in all of this. And that's it for now. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you.